We're going to get started. We have people here. Gavel. Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Grants Pass District 7 School Board meeting. It is nice to be back in person, so we'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for your attendance this evening. We will call our meeting to order and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if all would join me, have our flag here and we'll. Our flag. Already begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, thank you. So, second item on our agenda this evening is communications and items of information. Superintendent Kolb, do we have any written communication?
No additional communications at this time.
So we do have some blue cards, I believe, over by the door. If anyone would like to speak to an agenda item, you may fill out a card and submit that to Todd, and he will pass that along to me. We will answer those items as they come up on our agenda this evening. So. Our next item is our general fund expenditure report, 2.3.
I believe that is a typo and should have been part of the consent agenda.
Okay.
One can hear okay.
That is correct.
Can everyone hear okay? I will yell. I have 7 children. I am good at yelling. So. All right. Our third item on the agenda is our consent agenda. So 3.1, approval of our July 13th, 2021 board agenda, and then approval of our June 22nd, 2021 public hearing with our operating budget draft minutes. Item 3.3, approval of June 22nd board meeting draft minutes. 3.4, approval of July 1st special board minute draft minutes with oath of members. And then our 3.5 is our personnel report. So we will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So move. Brian?
Brian?
I'll second.
Chair Nelson.
Yeah,
Before we approve our board agenda, I believe we need to add to our executive session things that we're going to cover, the contract.
I checked with legal counsel on that, and that is not something the board can do in executive session. The evaluation of is okay, but the terms of a contract are not okay.
Okay.
So discussion on the contract needs to be done in public session and will not be done in our executive session. That's
Okay.
why it was not changed on our agenda.
All right.
All right, so with that then, do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda? Debbie?
And does that include the general fund expenditure report then in with that?
Yes, it should.
We'll put item 3.6, general fund expenditure report with our consent agenda. So
Did you get your vote? Did you make the motion?
Brian motioned it and Cliff second.
Okay.
any further discussion? Okay, Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member De La Grange,
Yes.
Member Coleman,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Wilkins.
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we forgot to welcome our newest board member this evening, Todd Neville, who is joining us for the first time, even though we did have a Zoom meeting on the 1st to swear him in. So we're excited to have you on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 4.0, our annual board organization. 4.1, recognition of elected board members.
Yep. And this is where board chair will walk us through. First of all, I'll do 4.1, recognition of elected members to the board. Board Chair Nelson affirmed the elected board members Todd Neville, new to the board, Debbie Brownell, Gary Richardson, and Cassie Wilkins, who were elected to new terms expiring June 30th of 2025. And now you take over the seeking nominations of the board chair and running from there.
All right, so as this is our annual time to reorganize our board leadership, 4.2, school board organization for 2021 and 2022. Election of chairman of the board, 4.2.1, nomination of chairman for Board of Education for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2021. So do we have a nomination for someone to serve as our board chair? Debbie?
Chairman Nelson, I nominate yourself, Scott Nelson, for chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? Cliff?
Well, I see another hand. Brian?
Go ahead, Cliff.
No, I'll wait.
I was going to nominate Member Coolman.
I'm very honored to be nominated by member. And you can see one of the reasons I probably am not a good fit is because I do have trouble seeing and hearing and sometimes remembering. But Brian indicated he might nominate me, and I really appreciate him. But I feel that due to the circumstances, I can't fulfill that job physically. I'd have the desire, and I think the timing would work. But physically, I don't want to let anybody down. So I would decline that, and I would add a second to Scott continuing for a second term. I've never wanted 2 terms in a row, but I think in this case, Scott has done a tremendous job. And we need Scott 1 more year, and he can do that by law. So I second your motion.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Is it discussion time?
Well, are there any other nominations? All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Well, I just wanted to clarify if Member Brownell's position about not having the chairman serve for 2 years in a row has changed since last year.
I stand by my reasoning, but these have been extraordinary times, and I can be flexible and wish to be this time.
So a board member can change their mind.
And I have before and probably will again.
Okay, thank you.
Right?
I just want to remind the board to please speak up because I see people like leaning in and they just can't hear what we're saying. So maybe next time we can get some amplification.
I'll just say again, I reserve the right to change my mind when new information becomes available.
Thank you.
All right, so Scott Nelson was nominated by Debbie Brownell for the position of board chair. It was seconded by Cliff Coleman. We will take a roll call vote unless there's further discussion. Brian?
So I know in the past it's been tradition to rotate the chair and the vice chair and the parliamentarian. So having Scott be chair again would step outside of what we have traditionally done. And I think we're all aware of that, but I think it bears repeating. And then there was one other issue that I want to bring up. And over the past year, we have had a lot of interest from the public as far as wanting to engage with the board. And our current policy allows the chair to exercise discretion for public comment, if I understand correctly. And I know that Scott, as the chair, has elected to not allow public comment unless it relates to an action item. I would be more comfortable allowing the public to make comment, even if it's not on one of our action items, just so we have a clearer line of communication with our families and with our constituents. So that's my only reservation about voting for Scott again this year, unless something changes on that front.
For clarification, the practice has been more than just action items. It's any item on the entirety of the agenda.
Okay,
That has been the discretion he's exercised.
very good. Thank you.
So I appreciate that. I think I will just make a comment that I think we have tried to keep in place comments that are relevant to what the board is doing. I know that we've had a number of very contentious issues. I think the public has spoken loud and clear. How many emails have we all received? Hundreds of emails voicing concerns on either side. Basically, a lot of these issues don't have anything to do with the board until it comes at an appropriate moment, which will be Thursday. And I think that's the appropriate time to then have those conversations. So I think I appreciate that. It's not that we're trying to hide things or not be transparent about what we do, but there is a procedure in getting the work of the school district done and then still tackling some of the more difficult issues that need to be tackled at the appropriate time. And I think we could spend countless hours as a board hearing concerns about certain issues that don't necessarily help us get the work that needs to be done. But there is an appropriate time and way to do that, and that time is coming. And so I think that's why I have settled on allowing us to do the work that still needs to get done. And we can then discuss those issues at a more appropriate time. So. But I appreciate Brian's concerns. I share those. I know that I'll just speak to the public who are here and to those who are watching on Zoom. We recognize that there are lots of issues out there that people would like to speak to. I read an article today that school boards across the country are dealing with contentious issues on many fronts. And I think for the first time in the state of Oregon, people were actually running for school board positions, which has never happened before. So I think that just speaks to where we are as a society and as a country. But again, these are not issues that we are hiding from. I think there is just a way to deal with them and have them come up to the board at an appropriate moment. There is still a lot of work that needs to be done outside of that. So I appreciate that. But we have tried to keep us focused on what needs to be done and then discuss those at the appropriate time. So I think that's what I'll say to that matter.
So I guess I would say our policy is fairly clear that it has to relate to an agenda item and that the chair may, but does not have to, allow the public to speak. And that's so that we can balance, as you say, getting the work done and yet still hearing from the public. Too often, some public meetings turn into a place for somebody to come have a public forum for an issue they care very deeply about, but as we would say, it's not on our agenda, nothing that we can affect. So we have to be able to balance getting our work done with letting people have a free forum for talking about their idea. And I think we have a pretty good balance at this point.
I think as I said, I don't know. I think we receive hundreds of emails from people in the public over the last 6 months on various issues. We read those. But again, as Gary pointed out, not all of those issues come to us for resolution. And this is not necessarily the forum to have a debate on some of those issues. So we'll continue to balance, I think, as things progress. There will be more contentious issues, I'm sure, that arise in the next year or two as we move forward with all of the other challenges that we have. So.
Knock on wood, sir.
I know. That's what I see the future looking like, unfortunately. All right. So, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one other thing before we vote. I think it'd be appropriate if any board members had conversations with superintendent or any other directors about who might serve as chair this year. I think it would be appropriate for them to voice that those conversations have taken place before the vote.
So I guess I'd say, what's the point exactly?
The point would be staff trying to influence who the board nominates for leadership.
Okay,
and just being transparent about that.
So so I'll just say I've inquired with almost every board member, I think excluding Todd here, who's new, is do you have, or they have asked me, are you aware of interest of any board members to run for the chair? And so I have shared with the board what I was aware of when asked about that.
Well, I know I wasn't one of those members, so I don't know if you want to say what specific members, or I guess that could be left up to the members to say.
So when you, Gary, and Debbie in the parking lot, that I was asked about, and I said, oh, and I also heard Gary might be interested, if you recall that conversation. So you had an opportunity there, and I shared that Scott had shared interest in running again.
okay, so I guess if I'm going down the list, had the conversation with Kirk and Debbie and I guess you, Brian, in the parking lot. I got a text message from Scott indicating that he was interested in running for a second year. Trying to think, I did get some text messages from Debbie talking about who we should have for board chair next year, which included Cassie. I specifically didn't have any with Todd, and I think you, Brian, we didn't discuss other than the one time in the parking lot.
Sure.
I think I covered them all, but that's just from memory.
Well, I think one-on-one conversations between board members is totally appropriate. I was more interested in the conversation between staff and the board. So just to clarify.
That was close.
You're good.
And I would say, thanks for the clarification that you're asking for more than just a one-on-one, because I would feel uncomfortable sharing anything that I would have a one-on-one conversation with any of you in this kind of form, because that is more confidential and appropriate for
I appreciate
different.
your comment.
So thanks for clarifying that.
Well,
I apologize for that. We will attempt to fix that for the future. We'll do the best we can to continue to shout. I think the folks at home right now can hear it far better than you can in person. We apologize for that. This is our first attempt at running a meeting in a different location that allows for a larger participation. So please bear with us. We'll do our best and remind each other to speak as loud as possible. Thank you.
there are seats up front if you want closer.
The whole,
Everybody could come closer.
Any further discussion then? All right, Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Why skip over Board Chair Nelson? Since he was nominated.
Yeah.
Let's start at that end.
Yeah, I would skip over him.
Member Neville,
That's the vote
Motion
for
for-
the motion to
Yes.
be in favor or not in favor?
Yes.
Yes, in favor.
Member De La Grange,
I'll vote no.
I probably should abstain. I don't want to make enemies.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
yes,
I think Scott does get a vote. He accepted the nomination, so, but not make an assumption and put it in the record that he voted for himself.
Yes.
Not the other guy?
All right, so Scott Nelson was elected chairman of District 7's Board of Education for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2021 by a vote of 5-1 with one abstention. So now we will go to 4.2.2, election of vice chairman, vice chairperson of the board, nominations for vice chair of the Board of Education for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2021. We have a nomination for vice chair.
Well, I'll try again. I nominate Cassie as vice chair.
Brian, I'll second that.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Any discussion?
Don't feel bad if we don't discuss it.
I can't talk to you right now. My palms are sweaty.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that Cassie Wilkins be nominated for the position of vice chair. It was nominated by Debbie Brownell and seconded by Brian DeLagrange. We will take a roll call vote, please.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville, sorry.
Yes.
Glitch out a little bit. Member Delagrange.
Yes.
Member Coleman.
Yes,
Member Brownell.
Yes.
Member Wilkins.
Yes.
Member Wolf. Right, Member Richardson.
Yes.
All right, congratulations, Member Wilkins, Vice Chair for the Board of Education by a vote of 7-0. You're doing very well. Congratulations.
Bar.
All right, election of parliamentarian, nominations for parliamentarian of the Board of Education for the fiscal year commencing 2021, or July 1st, 2021. We have a nomination for parliamentarian. Debbie,
I would nominate the new board member Neville.
I'll
Wow.
second that motion.
great. All right, it has been moved and seconded that Todd Neville be recommended for the position of parliamentarian. Any other nominations? Todd, will you accept the nomination? I guess we should probably ask that.
Nobody has.
I hesitate, but yes.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Gary?
So it should be noted that it's also somewhat traditional to work the newer members into the essentially role of one of the executive positions to eventually prepare them to be the chair. And so that's kind of a traditional thing. So we're not singling you out. That's tradition.
Thanks. This is not the first time I've been approached on this.
Not your first rodeo.
It is my first rodeo of this sort, but thanks for the support.
All right, so Todd was nominated by Debbie Brownell for the position of parliamentarian, and it was seconded by Cliff Coleman.
Yes.
We will take a roll call vote, please.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville,
Yeah.
Member Delagrange.
Seeing as I just met Todd 20 minutes ago, I'm just going to vote no. No offense.
None taken.
Member Coleman,
I'd like to go with Brian. I like him a lot, but I'm going to go with yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
All right, congratulations. Todd Neville was elected parliamentarian of District 7's Board of Education for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2021 by a vote of 6-1. So welcome and congratulations again.
I hesitate to say thanks.
Google your friend.
All right, our next item is 4.2.4, meeting times. Currently, our board meetings have been held typically every other week at 5 p.m. in the evening. We will entertain a motion to change times if so desired.
I moved to go back to noon and one at noon and one at 5. Bomb. Is
All
there
right,
a
so
second?
historically, the board has met at noon one of the months or one of the weeks, and then the second week in the month, we typically have met at 5 p.m. And so it's motion that we go back to that. Is there a second?
Let's see. I believe the motion was the second Tuesday to be at 5 and the fourth Tuesday to be at noon. Is that correct?
Is that the way it was?
That's the way it was.
First meeting,
What did we
for
used to
the second Tuesday of the month at 5 o'clock, the fourth Tuesday of the month at noon
Noon.
was historically prior to this school year, I believe, last 2 school years.
Yeah, last 3.
So is that your motion?
Yes, my motion is,
And I would second it.
I just want to go back to noon.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Brian, I see your hands up.
Oh, no, I was just motioning to Cassie, sorry.
Oh, Gary?
So I'm going to vote no on that motion. I prefer to keep the two meetings at 5 o'clock. There's sort of been significant increase in the length of school board meetings. And for me, who works the traditional 8 to 5 job, the noon meeting once a month is a significant burden.
Todd?
And my job is more traditionally during the day, and I would not have that flexibility in my personal professional schedule to be able to accommodate other than what it's currently at, which is the 5 o'clock every 2 weeks. That would be a strain.
Okay. Any further comments from the board members?
So do you want to keep it or do you want to withdraw?
No, we have a second. Let's go.
Well, just,
Can we compromise at 3? Does that work better?
No.
Okay, no.
Well, that is difficult for myself as well. Brian hasn't made any comments. I know Brian works during that time. Is that
Member DeLagrange will be voting no.
okay? All right. Well, we certainly can take a vote on that motion. So Tanya, would you please give us a roll call vote?
I'm not real sure.
The motion is to have our board meetings at 5 o'clock and at noon
Is that better?
every other week.
Okay.
show unity.
So to go back to how the meeting schedule was before, Cliff.
Right. Okay, and so could I recall why we changed it to 5 and 5 instead of 5 and
For the reasons that were stated, in addition to more accessible to the public when it's a 5 o'clock meeting versus in the middle of the workday.
Oh,
So it's a burden on several board members to have a noon meeting due to their work schedules. And I believe the historical discussion was accessibility to community members and the time of day.
All right.
the way
I'll
it used
withdraw
to
my
be.
motion.
Okay,
Cassie, you want to repeat that?
I'll withdraw my motion. Try again next year.
And I would withdraw my second. I believe that we had more student reports available at a noon meeting was another main consideration for having it at noon instead of 5. But I can understand that people who work need that time frame.
Okay, so that motion has been withdrawn as well as a second. So we will entertain a new motion if one is available. If not, we will continue with our current regime, I suspect. Brian?
Oh, I was just going to move to continue with our current schedule.
Okay, that's been moved
I will second that.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member DeLagrange.
Yes.
Member Coleman.
yes,
Member Brownell,
Yes,
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richards.
Yes.
All right, so the motion carries. Thank you.
You'll read through all of the entirety. There will need to be a motion to pass that resolution.
All right. Item 4.3, Annual Organizational Resolution 2021-01 for 2021 through 2022. Designated Executive 4.3.1, that Superintendent Kirk Kolb is the board's executive officer and therefore by law serves as the district's clerk. 4.3.2, the Chief Financial Officer and Operations Officer Sherry Ely is the board's deputy clerk and budget officer. 4.3.3, that Kirk Kolb, superintendent, is authorized to use a facsimile signature. 4.3.4, that Kirk Kolb, superintendent clerk, and Sherry Ely, chief financial and operations officer, deputy clerk, be authorized to sign all district checks, one signature to be required. With respect to site-based accounts, the superintendent may delegate signature authority to appropriate site-based personnel. 4.3.5, that Sherry Ely, Chief Executive and Operations Officer, Deputy Clerk, and Kirk Kolb, Superintendent Clerk, be authorized to make salary and invoice payments according to school district policy and state law. 4.4.6, that Kirk Kolb, Superintendent Clerk, and Sherry Ely, Deputy Clerk, be authorized to invest surplus funds according to school district policy and state law. 4.3.7, that Umpqua Bank, being a bank deemed a safe and proper depository of school funds for the purpose of receiving on-demand deposit funds of this district, is hereby designated as the primary depository for school funds of this district, and the chief financial and operations officer, deputy clerk of this school district shall deposit monies belonging to said district in such bank until further order of this board. 4.3.8, that the chairman of the board of directors, superintendent of the district, and deputy clerk of Grants Pass School District Number 7, Grants Pass, Oregon, are hereby authorized to borrow money in the name of said school district for the purpose of paying its current expenses for 2021 through 2022. 4.3.9, that Superintendent Kirk Cole be authorized to fill staff vacancies and report them to the board in accordance with school policy, CBA, and GCC/GDC. 4.3.10, that Sorensen, Ramson, Ferguson, and Kirchhoff LLP be appointed the legal firm for the school district for the fiscal year 2021 through 2022, with the superintendent being authorized to seek specialized legal counsel if and when necessary. 4.3.11, that KDP CPA be approved as the district auditor for the school year 2021 through 2022. 4.3.12, that Hart Insurance Company shall serve as regent of record for district property, liability, and health insurance for fiscal year 2021 through 2022. That's it. Thank you. 4.3.13, that SAIF insurance companies be appointed as the district workers' compensation carrier for fiscal year 2021 through 2022. 4.3.14, that Superintendent Clerk Kirk Kolb and Chief Financial and Operations Officer Deputy Clerk Sherry Ely be authorized to receive and expend federal and state funds. 4.3.15, that Kirk Kolb, Superintendent of Schools, is designated as the authorized representative of Grants Pass School District Number 7 in connection with filing for federal projects under Public Law 89-10 and Public Law 874, and any and all other public programs, both federal and state. 4.3.16, that the Board of Education accept 2021 through 2022 federal funds in the amount of $9,089,858 as authorized by the Budget Committee. Any increases over these amounts will be brought to the board for acceptance. The authorized representatives, Grants Pass School District Number 7, to receive these funds in file forms are Kirk Kolb, Superintendent Clerk, and Sherry Ely, Chief Financial and Operations Officer, Deputy Clerk. 4.3.17, that Superintendent Clerk Kirk Kolb and Deputy Clerk Sherry Ely are bonded for $100,000. 4.3.18, that the board appoints Kirk Kolb and his designee and Dan Catola as hearings officers to act in accordance with Oregon statutes and rules in hearing cases referred to the board. 4.3.19, that the Grants Pass District Number 7 Board of Education hereby reaffirm its intent to act as the local contract review board for the district. And finally, 4.3.20, that the attendance supervisor for 2021 through 2022 will be Trish Evans, Director of Secondary Education. We will entertain a motion to approve those,
One resolution.
or to approve this resolution.
Member DeLagrange, so moved.
I second. Goldman.
Excellent. So it has been moved and seconded by Brian DeLagrange and Cliff Coleman. Any further discussion?
Just only a technical point with the deputy clerk moving from normal employee to contract employee. There's no issues with this stuff.
No,
Okay.
this has all been vetted every year by legal counsel, and it's pretty standard language that the board has approved and set up.
Not the name, if the category of the employee moved, did that affect who's eligible to be in those positions? And I think the answer would be no.
Yeah, the answer is no for this year. As you've noticed in the packet, Deputy Clerk, Chief Financial and Operations Officer Sherry Ely is announcing her retirement and ultimately working back through June 30th. So nothing has changed.
Okay.
But we will vet potential future changes.
Any further discussion?
Trish Evans is the attendance supervisor, and we're going to have 100% attendance this next year.
It's not what the resolution says.
Online attendance. Or in-
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Delagrange,
Yes.
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The resolution passes. All right, that was a lot of reading. Let's not do that again. All right, 5.0 reports. 5.1 AP History Textbook Recommendation. Kyle Swanson or Trish Evans?
This is a new venue and a new format. You just do it from my spot, which is what we usually use here. You'll get come up to the podium.
Need a mic.
Yeah, we do just for the,
Sorry.
No, fine. I'm good with that.
The mic works either way. So these mics are tremendous and they do work either way. So
So they'll get it. Make sure everybody else can hear. Hello, Kyle Swanson could not be with us tonight. He had a prior commitment. So I'm speaking on his behalf. In your board packet is the adoption recommendation form. This is a late submission by Kyle and his department, but it has been approved by the administration of Grants Pass High School and myself for proceeding to this next one. AP US History is the course we teach at Grants Pass High School, and Fabric of a Nation is the book being recommended for adoption. The reasons are pretty well outlined in Kyle's recommendation form, but to just speak quickly to it, this book is 100% aligned to the AP assessment. Our current book is not, and therefore does not support students as well as they prepare for AP US History course exams. He's requesting this book as a replacement to what they've been using for years, and feels that this is the book that best prepares students. In his third bullet, he says the style and content of the chapter exams in the book are identical to the AP exam. Unlike many other books which were written before the AP US History test was redesigned, this book was written after the changes were made to the test. He further gives you an abstract summary from the publisher, and I have the book here for your review. It's not an action item tonight. I wanted an opportunity for you to be able to review the textbook and for the public to review the textbook and offer any input. And then we will come forward at our next board meeting, which is at 5 o'clock on the fourth Thursday of the month. Any questions about the recommendation? The book can be found in the curriculum office for review.
As it hasn't had a chance because of the late submission to go to the parent advisory.
It has not, and our membership has not settled yet in terms of who our replacements are. So this book's coming directly to you guys today, who ultimately you approve all instructional materials for the district. Okay, in my office if you need it.
thank you. 5.2, a new website. Welcome, thank you.
Good evening. It's great to see you all in person. A long year and a half. So before we begin, I just wanted to give a little background on how we got to this place. The district had been looking to update its website for a while, but as you know, COVID happened. So we wanted to maintain the current website that we had so that parents, families, students, and staff could find what they were looking for, where they were usually used to looking for it, because there were so many changes last year. So that revamp and redesign was tabled until this year. At the beginning of the year, we started looking at a few website vendors and we surveyed parents, staff, and community members. based on the demos that we had with vendors, as well as the feedback we received from stakeholders, we did decide to change vendors. And in April, we began building our new website with Final Site. It was an estimated 22 to 30-week project based on a district of our size, but we did it in about 9 weeks and launched June 30th, as that's when our previous contract was ending. So throughout the summer, we'll be continuing to add content and train building level staff as they return for next school year. And Todd's got a few slides, and I just figured we'd take a quick walk down memory lane to see how our website has transformed over the last couple decades. So that was our homepage in 2002. We then have a 2008, our most recent website. And then he will take you to the new site, which again launched June 30th. I'm actually going to turn this way so I can point so that the board can see what we're talking about. Working? Okay, perfect. So the design and navigation was inspired by best practices as well as the survey feedback that we received from our school community. Our new site is accessible, mobile friendly, and available for translation in multiple languages used by District 7 families. So here we're at the main district landing page. We have made it easier to navigate between the district and the schools. One of the things we received in the survey was that the district and schools drop down was kind of hidden between a few other icons, and so it's very clear and prominent there at the top. If you hover over the schools button, you can go to any school in the district and at any time can hover back to the district site with those top icons. Below the schools drop down, you'll find that there are icons for staff and for students. Both of those contain all the applications and websites that our staff and students use, hopefully making it a one-stop shop for both staff and students. Those two quick links are at the top of every single school site in order to provide hopefully a consistent experience for visitors. There's also a login button that will be for staff use, as well as quick links located on every school site and district site. And then there is a search tool in order to do keyword searches on each of these school sites, as well as the district website. Again, our website can be translated into multiple languages by clicking the language button there at the bottom right. The translations are now powered through Weglot. They used to be done through Google Translate. This is done through Weglot. And what is unique about Weglot is that we can actually manipulate the translations. So of course there are different dialects of Spanish. And so with our staff members who do translations for the district and for schools, we are able to go in and update those if it doesn't quite fit what our school community is used to reading. Below the main slideshow, we have quick links. Those are all based on analytics, things that folks are looking for most often. Right now, they are bus routes, meals, athletics, the calendar, our contact button, and our registration button. Those may change as the school year goes on. People are looking for specific information at any given time. Our top navigation for the district has 6 venues. Our old website had 9. Best practice is less than 7. So we have eliminated a few, combined some. Right now it is our district, departments, teaching and learning, parents, community, and employment. Under every main tab, everything is done in alphabetical order, as well as any subpages. So if you want to go maybe to our district and Board of Education, Dr. Bloomquist. All subpages will also be underneath there and in alphabetical order. Underneath the quick links, if you could go back to the home page for me. Underneath those quick links, the icons under the icons, sorry. Yep. I forgot you were looking at my green button. So if you could keep scrolling. Underneath the quick links, you'll find information about our district. There will be a featured video at any given time on the school or district website, quick facts, our vision, mission, and strategic plan. Underneath that is our district news, followed by the most recent calendar items. And if you want to view the entire calendar, you have the view all events, and underneath the news, there's also view all news. Then at our footer, you'll find contact information, additional quick links, our contact information, and all the icons to follow our social media. So again, this is just kind of a quick overview of the district page. If you want to look at all 2,000 pages, I encourage you to go to wearegp.com. But I will spare you from going through every page. We're just going to continue that build out and training over the summer, and we'll be providing some video tutorials for families and the public to help them navigate the new site as well. And hopefully it will provide a good user experience for everyone. Any questions? Yeah.
How many languages do you have it translated to?
So currently we have it used by the languages that our district families have said that they speak.
Which is how many?
Well, right now it is 4. And then we also have American Sign Language, which of course our website is ADA accessible.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just say that it looks great. I think it's an improvement.
Appreciate that.
And I'll just add, she talked about the timelines that they said it probably will take you about this long. She was the lone ranger on this one and locked away in her office for hours and hours on end as one of her primary focuses for the last 9 weeks. And we're super proud of being able to share this. It's organized, it's more intuitive for users to find the information they want. So kudos to Kristen for the energy and time she put into it.
Find any links that don't work or anything that needs to be added, please let me know. There's still a little painter's tape up here as we keep building it out over the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job. All right, 5.3, our SWOT analysis of our strategic plan pillars. So for the public and also for our new board member, Todd, we have spent a fair amount of time over the last, year and a half, 2 years now, really working and honing in on our strategic plan as a district, the things that we feel are important. Really, I think our board has been instrumental in trying to focus in, and I appreciate working with superintendent and staff, trying to develop goals and areas of emphasis for us moving forward in the future. And so tonight we get to hear a presentation on our strategic plan. So I will turn the time over to Kirk.
Yeah, so I'll just quick introduction or overview here. So a SWOT analysis is a tool that's very commonly used in corporations and large organizations everywhere to really evaluate, are we focused on the right thing? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Where is there opportunity for us to grow and improve? And then identifying, calling out what weaknesses we might have. And so I'm taking that and then aligning and looking at our current 4 identified priorities that we've established. These are the pillars of our district or our strategic plan. The first one is about building a resilient community. The second one is grounding our practices in equity and inclusion. The third one is improving academic outcomes with in providing students with a real focus on what are your post-secondary aspirations and are you prepared for that and are we helping you get there? And finally, the last one is ensuring safety, good facilities, that's hard to read here, but building organizational capacity, making sure we have the infrastructure both physically as well as organizationally to execute our mission and goals. So a SWOT analysis, it's a process that entails putting all aspects of the district and the work on the table to see what is working well to support our priorities, what is hindering progress, and what obstacles to address. So my directors are going to split up and tackle these 4 pillars and briefly walk us through and then allow the board to ask any questions they might have about what we've identified. So this is not in your packet as the final touches were still being put on it even as late as today in terms of the work that we put into evaluating things.
So I'll just begin. I'm Director Bloomquist, so Todd Bloomquist. And so under this first pillar is the Building Resilient Communities pillar. And so as we looked at the strengths and the opportunities, the weaknesses, and threats, these are just our brainstorm ideas. And then as we look at all the things that we think we can focus on for this year, we started narrowing down the red areas there, areas we felt as a director team, we could really go after these particular areas. So looking at opportunities, for example, our discovery model for Gladiola campus and our middle school methodology to help engage kids in the learning process. a program called Positive Discipline, for example, which has gotten Redwood did a really beautiful presentation this last year on their work with positive discipline and again, helping kids to regulate throughout the day when they're struggling with access to learning. Our AVID program, which is middle school schedules, for example, which really is about how that child in middle school is growing and really developing skills that are best for that child. Looking at our trust issues, that's about communication. We feel like we could do a better job about that. And so you heard the board talk about that tonight. How can we have better lines of communication between staff, between kids? Last couple of years prior to COVID, we've done listening sessions with kids to hear how are our students doing and what can we do as a school community to make those changes. So those are just some of the highlights there. The second one, I get one of my 10 screens working here, is on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so again, looking at what are the strengths of the district. We've been working on this for a number of years now. We felt strongly that leadership, commitment, putting dollars on the table for this work, investing in community groups to help us and support the work that we need to do for our kids and staff, building more staff champions, toolboxes for staff. Sometimes we don't even know what the words are. And so how do we actually define the words that we're using? How are we listening to our kids? How are we getting more diverse staff? That's a big deal. Our teaching population should reflect the kids that we're serving. So how can we do that? Creating safe places. You've heard the board talk about that over the last couple of years, that every student should feel safe on every campus every day. And we know we don't have kids that feel safe every day. And so what we need to do is work harder to make it safe for every kid on our campus, no matter what. So that's a big deal for us. Anyway, so those are the top two, the first two. And then the next one is about academics.
So I'm Susan Zatola, the Director of Elementary Education.
Trish Evans, Director of Secondary Education.
So like Todd said, there's lots of things up there to celebrate and lots of strengths that we have. And it actually was a nice exercise for us to remind ourselves of all of the strengths that we do have. We do have a lot going for us. We just got a little distracted by the last year and a half, and it was nice to refocus on the really strong academic program that we do have here in District 7. Some of the things that we looked at also that, like Todd said, that we wanted to focus on are this year are implicit biases, divisiveness and prioritizing time. At first we thought, well, we don't want to focus on the negative. And sometimes those things, when you just put words on a document without the conversation might appear negative, but it's not about being negative. It's just about recognizing what are the things that can get in the way of students' academic success. Acknowledge it, address it, and see how we can remove that as a barrier for students.
Speak to this.
Yes. We know we learned a lot in COVID over this last year, and we really want to do a good job of rebounding from that with skills and techniques that we learned not only in how our teachers delivered instruction, but how our students engaged in instruction. So GP Flex is a virtual online school we'll be starting next year because we know that worked for some of our kids. And so we'll be starting that, taking that opportunity. And then data, we have lots of data in our district. We need to get back to being able to use our data really well. Ways to utilize that with our staffs. We were able to very successfully, with our 9th grade success team this last year, really focus on data for helping our freshmen stay on track and had some really good successes there. And then we've had quite a bit of relief dollars and being able to use some of that money to help with coaching, for instructional coaching in particular, to help us, help our teachers, to help our students. So that is our academic pillar.
Ready?
So I'm Danny Huber-Cantola. Thank you for electing me hearings officer again. It's always a treasure to do the expulsion hearings for the district. And then this is Sherry Ely. Sherry is our Chief Operations Financial Director. Right?
Right.
All right. So we took on this task of trying to tell you a little bit about this area. So you want to talk about strengths just briefly?
Sure. So as has mentioned, we have a lot of things to celebrate in the district. We have good leadership. We have a great safety record. Our supervisors are second to none. They are what helped me be as successful in my position as I am. And they also helped to build such a strong education community that we have. So very grateful for our supervisors. We hired a risk manager this year, someone that can help me with some of the tasks I do. My job covers a lot of areas in the district. I don't do much on the education side, but I do a lot on the operations of the district. Hiring a risk manager to help me with the safety. COVID was a big deal. We needed someone to help us with all the COVID management. So that was definitely a success. We have a wonderful relationship with our city police department and all of our community partners. And so we look at that as definitely a great success. We have seismic grants that have allowed us to upgrade many of our facilities. Actually, all of our older buildings have had seismic grants, and we've got to do a lot of work at each of those buildings. The district has borrowed a significant amount of money to upgrade our HVAC systems at all of our older schools, and that's north-south. Allendale, Riverside, and Highlands. And so hopefully by the end of this summer, we'll have good air quality if we have a wildfire season again, which I'm hoping we don't. But if we do, we'll be able to regulate the airflow into the buildings. And so that's pretty awesome for us. So we talked about hiring.
I can talk about hiring. So we have been a part of a coalition in Southern Oregon, and we have been going through a process of looking at our hiring practices, from everything for how we post jobs, the questions that we ask, how we screen, all of that kind of stuff. And so you will see that our post, if you look at a posting 5 years ago, it won't say anything about Spanish preferred. If you look at a posting now, every posting will say something about Spanish, the ability to speak Spanish preferred. If you look at the questions that were asked in interviews, you'll find that now there are some equity scenarios that are asked in all of the interviews that take place in the district. So just trying to be stronger in our hiring practices, meet that goal Todd talked about being able to have our student population and our staff population somewhat reflect each other, or more closely reflect one another. So I'm very proud to have been a part of that process and continuing to be a part of that process. Opportunities, the big one in red. Sherry has been here for 30 years. James has been here for many years, and James knows where every sewer pipe is buried in the district, and he just left. And so between the two of them, there is a tremendous amount of knowledge about our safety and our facilities that will not be with us at the end of this year. And so, not that they won't call and answer texts, but they've both done a tremendous job. I think you guys both know how much they've done for this district. And so, but it's also an opportunity to look at how we do jobs, how things are dispersed in terms of leadership. And so it's an opportunity to us to potentially make a change. Anybody ever been to a graduation ceremony or a football game? How was your parking? So we know that one of the things that's difficult for us is parking flow, traffic flow, those types of things. Space is an issue in some of our schools. The district office itself has run out of physical space. Kristen is amazing, like you saw, and she works out of a closet for the most part. It's been remodeled to look like a semi-office. And so we know that as they bring in new teacher leadership, like instructional coaches and that kind of stuff, we don't have any physical space in the district office for them to sit. So vacant lot, it's a potential that we may look at potentially putting modulars in that vacant lot across the street from the district office that may help with some of that, and also provide a place for GP Flex, because we don't have that a small space at the high school for GP Flex. What else?
I think another issue under threats where we've identified under one of the red items up there is hiring appropriate staff. Because of COVID, it's been hard to want to apply for jobs. And so we have a lot of openings, and like hiring custodians, hiring educational assistants, our food service workers, And so that is one of the areas that is a little bit of a threat right now. I hope as we come out on the other side of COVID that that's not going to be such an issue for us, but something that we definitely need to keep our eye on and work toward.
Later tonight, we hope that you'll approve the classified contract that has some raises at the lower end of the salary schedule to help us with recruiting for some of those positions. So, any questions on any of those things?
Tell me why the red is supposed to, is it drawing my attention to a priority or just new on that list? Because typically that can throw someone for attention on there.
So I think overall, all of those slides had some red on it. So part of the SWOT process is to go through and say, okay, what are 5 things, maybe 3 things, but certainly no more than 5 things we want to focus on this year to work on our strategic plan. And so the red items are the ones that we have said, these are things we want to focus on this year.
The current focus.
Yeah, they're all things that we're attending to, but identifying what are some of the key priorities critical for us moving forward and making progress to be able to narrow those down and create some sense of focus. Because if we made every one of those a priority at the highest level, the capacity is just it's better to do some things very focused and at high levels and maintain others than try to achieve them all with the capacity of what we have organizationally. So,
Member Richardson, did you have a question too, sir?
Did James contract back for this year or?
He did not. So Nate Olson was approved to be the new supervisor for our maintenance department. And so we were fortunate that James did stay on for a month of time while Nate was here. And so the 2 of them trained together for the month of May and about half of May and most of June.
We will be having James come back though.
I was going to say, how did you let that happen?
He actually has his own company and he would bid for things and do those types of things for us. So
Yeah.
He's not completely gone.
Any other questions from the board?
Other than, can we receive a copy of that?
yeah, I made a note here to ensure you get that. And if any member of the public would like a copy, just reach out to my office and we will make sure you get a copy of this presentation. And so rolling forward, this was our director team conducting a SWOT analysis as we get better at the strategic plan process. Really, the vision here is that we would be, this is right now superintendent and directors. We have an administrative retreat coming up where our strategic plan will be a key part of that. And we will walk our building administrators through what that looks like and ultimately be asking them to go back to their buildings and identify under the 4 pillars, what are our building strengths, weaknesses, what are our opportunities, and what do we view as potential threats as a building, and ultimately finding alignment as we share with them what we've identified, then they take that back to their building and evaluate. You know, we feel like we're really strong in this area. The district has said this is a focus priority. We want to celebrate that. Or otherwise, we should begin to see some alignment. So this going back to building administration, school staff, and then, Director Bloomquist talked about listening sessions with staff and listening sessions with students. So, and then as well as community members. So anyway, looking at processes to do that. I want to reflect back on when we did our student investment account, community engagement opportunities, and invited folks in to address, how should we invest this money? So that's one form or process that we're actually required to continuously do. So we'll seek out those forums to solicit the feedback from the community on these 4 pillars. And so this is the work, and it sure was refreshing to be able to sit down and focus on what we're supposed to be doing in education and block out the noise for a little bit. So it was encouraging, and as Director Zatola said, it was a really nice activity of reflection to move us forward into the new school year. Is there another one, Todd? I think that's it.
I just wanted to follow up with what Cassie mentioned. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to be getting board meeting materials 2 business days before the board meeting for review. And at the very least, have it here printed for the meeting. And I know this screen is very hard to see. I couldn't tell you if Member Kuhlman caught any of that. So, you know, I just would like to not have that happen in the future.
Yeah. And we always try to do our best. There are occasions you'll get the agenda ahead of time for sure. That's what we definitely are obligated to do. All the associated materials may not necessarily be ready or prepared to distribute until board meeting proper. So we're always striving for that, Member De La Grange, and we appreciate your patience. Thanks.
Is the intent to have this as an action item next?
This is not, no. So moving forward, essentially what we're hoping to do is to take the existing plan and identify objectives associated with the plan and try to figure out how to make those measurable. Are we achieving what we have set out to do? And so updating that, I would anticipate by the first meeting in August that we will be able to come to you with some revisions around the strategic plans and updates as well.
Is the intent for us to support that strategic plan when it gets to that point?
Yeah, ideally, the board always has a voice in that. And I think a potential board workshop could be focused around sharing what we have just shared with you tonight, but also where you see the board sees in those particular areas as you're charged to. You've supported that these are the 4 main things that we do as a school district. And so having the board input on that, it needs to be part of the process. And as Member Nelson has pointed out, we're growing and the strategic plan is always evolving, and we're trying to get better at the process as we have not had one in the past.
So I have been working with Tanya. We do have dates for our future board meetings where we will have regularly scheduled times to hear reports on the plan and how we're doing. And so those have been blocked out already for the upcoming year. So we do have them already scheduled, and so I will make sure that that continues to work with Kirk and the team. But I agree, this is a board-involved process. This is where I think the board can be most helpful in setting the tone and a vision for the district, is helping to work on these goals and providing insight that is outside of maybe the in-school perspective on what we feel is important for our district to be focusing on. So those are our opportunities, I think, to really make inroads in sharing our thoughts and feelings about how things go. And so we will be having reports every 3 months on how we're doing with our pillars, and we will hear those updates. So, any other comments? We do have one item that would, Gary?
I guess I'd just say, both for our new board member and for the public, that the board's role is essentially policy, and the superintendent runs the district, and things such as that report is just the superintendent reporting to the board how things are going, what it looks like. I'm sure they like our input, but it's more of a report to us than work that we need to do.
Information sharing is what I was trying to understand, if that's what thank you.
Any other comments on this agenda item from the board? We do have one member of the community who'd like to speak. If I butcher your name, I apologize. Brodia Minter, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. If there's one thing I hate, it's public speaking, but if there's one thing I love, it's strategic planning. My name is Brodia Minter. I live here locally, across the street from the high school. I actually came today to speak about an issue that has been removed from the agenda, but when I saw the pillars of the strategic plan in place, I felt that the item that I came here to speak about fits well with it. In the slide, speaking about your second pillar of your strategic plan, grounding your practices in equity and inclusive practices, some of the things I screenshotted, I took a picture of and zoomed in to read off your board were staff champions and communication. And I think that is something that is really important. having staff champions, and having communication to ground practices in equity and inclusive practices. However, on my way into this meeting today, I heard from students outside who did not feel safe and did not feel that there were equitable and inclusive practices happening. And so today I came here to ask that you listen. I appreciate the opportunity for future listening sessions for students, the public, etc. I would love notice of those. I don't know how you provide that, but if you can make that really accessible, that would be great. Noting that this board provides policy and that is their role as policy, I would say that in developing the strategic plan, something that is really important is to consider implementation. And so if you're doing analysis of what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your opportunities are, something that's really important is that the implementation of this piece of paper that you guys worked hard on and we reviewed is actually happening in the classroom. And for that to be at the forefront, listening needs to be at the forefront. And the agenda item that I came here for today, you know, I prioritized my work. I left work early. I got the dog watched. I came here to be here and it was removed. So what should I do, right? I have to now do that again for Thursday for your next board meeting, or excuse me, the next scheduled meeting. So I would say, keep it real, commit, and work on implementation. Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll go to 6.0, our superintendent report, 6.1, reopening schools update.
Yeah, so if you haven't read, the CDC has announced some guidelines. There has come down through that a federal mandate that will require all individuals on transportation to wear masks unless you're not vaccinated. And there is going to be a requirement.
Unless you are vaccinated.
Unless you are vaccinated, thank you. And it looks like they'll be requiring all students who are riding transportation next school year. CDC, as you may have also seen, has recommended masks and distancing recommended masks and distancing in school for the unvaccinated. They have only recommended, we're waiting to hear from the Oregon Department of Ed. It should be July 22nd for final guidance. As the earlier indicated, everything was going to be advisory, but as we know, things change rapidly, such as the CDC's update. So we don't have anything in stone. Given the history of what we've experienced over the last year and a half and how constantly the rules change, it would not surprise me that somehow out of Salem, it would be mandated for any unvaccinated students or staff to be required to wear masks. It would not surprise me. It would disappoint me greatly to not allow the local control as they have initially communicated to us. So obviously more to come on that. Hopefully truly final guidance on July 22nd, but this again continues to be a moving target for us.
Did you say final?
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Okay, 6.2, our district office responsibilities.
Yeah, so in your packet is that big organizational chart regarding the superintendent and the team of directors. And ideally, it covers all of the responsibilities and areas that individuals are charged with. There are some changes to this, definitely from prior years when I look at the Office of School Improvement, Director of Special Services, actually all areas. And so really looking at organizational capacity, strengths of individuals, and trying to align responsibilities. And with the, I'm just going to make the public comment now with the retirement and having Director Ely for only one more year, we recognize the substantial knowledge, experience, and skills that she has developed and maintained over the years that it leaves quite a void for us as a district. And I can say there are very few in the district who put in the hours and work as hard as she does and has as vast a knowledge, difficult to replace. So I intend to come to the board with how do we replace that capacity? I do not anticipate it's going to be one individual or one department. I can, if the board wants to meet with me to talk, to see about what I'm thinking, but I will be coming to the board as a whole with how I would proceed to ensure the district is operating to its fullest capacity. And so just wanted to add that comment to this particular section. The responsibilities over there under Director Ely are vast and continuous. So anyway, more to come. If you have any questions on this particular chart right now, feel free. It's a lot.
All right, we do have one, Debbie.
As I was coming in, I met Vanessa Jones, and I don't know if the board members have met her, but she's the new Director of Special Services, and welcome to the team.
Yeah, you all met her over Zoom, but here she is live and in person. She's already been a wonderful asset. Very pleased with her just being part of this district and part of this team. It's a really good fit.
We do have one community member who'd like to speak on this agenda item, Kayla Wade.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Kayla Wade. I am the Logistics Director of the Southern Oregon Coalition for Racial Equity, or SOEquity, and I was born and raised here in Grants Pass and still currently live here. I wanted to first start by saying that I wanted to go on record by expressing my firm support for LGBTQ youth in Grants Pass School District and in our surrounding communities, especially our trans youth who may be affected by the horrific efforts of some of the educators at North Middle School. But that's something that will be talked about at a later time. For this particular topic, item 6.2, I wanted to address the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion. A few months ago, a board member had reached out to SOEquity to ask us to review the DEI resolution that you, as a school board, were looking at. And while it was a really good start, I am pretty disappointed to see that there are a lot of gaps between what was written down on paper and what is actually being implemented and enacted on a daily basis within the school district. It's my understanding that you had put out a position for a full-time diversity, equity, and inclusion administrator. And I'm not sure why that position has not been filled, but it is also my understanding that a lot of the duties from that job description has now been put onto the already extremely long laundry list of Tom Bloomquist. And that's perhaps maybe the best option right now. And I'm not saying that Mr. Bloomquist is not capable of handling and addressing DEI issues, but I've looked at that rubric that y'all were referring to, and I don't know how one person can handle all of those things. I'm here to say that as someone who runs an equity organization, it's a full-time job. It's not something that can just be tacked on to a person's already extremely long list of responsibilities. And especially for someone who, no offense, but is, as far as my understanding is a straight cis white man whose very identity is the reason we even have to talk about diversity and equity in the first place. I find it really interesting that, this has just been tacked on, and I'm curious if you all have thought about what type of message this sends to your students of color and to your queer and trans students and to all of your students from marginalized backgrounds that spend every day being told, whether implicitly or explicitly, that they need to, cooperate and be silent and comply, and don't have an outlet to actually express when an issue of inequity actually comes up. And now we're at a point where there are educators, professionals, adults within this district that feel empowered to be able to express their hate and their bigotry on a public forum. I also find it curious that in the SWOT analysis, LGBTQ acceptance is considered a threat. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that is, but I think that kind of that really highlights that y'all already understand that these issues are really, really important. And it's pretty curious that they haven't really fully been addressed. It often happens that when we're talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the inclusion part is often completely ignored when it comes to leadership and the people who are actually making decisions. So I really want to encourage all of you, this entirely white school board, to really consider how you are going to start moving forward in making sure that when we are talking about equity and inclusion, it is also reflected at the top level so that students know that there are people in power and people with some semblance of authority that they can actually turn to and feel safe with. I would really encourage you to prioritize hiring a full-time administrator for DEI work, and that you prioritize someone who has lived experience. That's not someone who has a master's degree in DEI facilitation from some fancy school that probably only has white instructors anyways. I'm talking about someone who actually understands what it's like to go to school every day in a small town or in any town in America as a person of color, as a queer person, and knows the firsthand experience of how they have to navigate the extremely tense political climate that exists today. It's important. It saves lives when students know that they can actually be heard. I really want to encourage you all to be proactive in this. And I understand that y'all have a staffing shortage right now. And I think that that is a really great opportunity to really think about why that is and what you can do to actually create an environment here that is going to not only recruit and allow for diverse staff to come here, but also allow for that diverse staff to stay here. That is a really important part. I want, finally, as someone who is a member of this community, who's born and raised here and who works in equity in Southern Oregon, I want to offer my resources and offer my expertise in any way that I can to help you start on that process and actually make your DEI resolution into tangible actions. And one thing, I'll toss out for free right now is that when we're talking about a SWOT analysis, I would really love to see how that SWOT analysis would be interpreted by the community. Has anyone from the community actually provided input on what we think are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of this school district? Because I'll tell you right now, when I saw that city police was on the strength section of one of these things, that doesn't seem like a strength to me. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of students, and especially students of color, would also agree that that is not a strength.
Kayla, we've given you 5 minutes. We're happy to have you just wrap up, please.
So yeah, I want to thank you for listening to me. I mean, this is an extremely important issue, and I really want to make sure that you are listening not only to the members of your community, but especially the students of your community. Thanks.
Comment about that now or during board comments?
About
I think under board comments,
Okay.
this is speaking to the board. It's not appropriate that board members would respond to public comments necessarily. So.
However, we will go on to 7.0, our board reports and special concerns. And so, Brian.
Thank you. So just to respond to Kayla, it's my understanding that we have Todd as the EDI coordinator in a temporary capacity because we as a district had trouble finding somebody that would fit. So, it's my intent to push to have a dedicated EDI coordinator. I know, Todd does a lot, and that work is very important. So I would like us to just remember that and work towards that.
Yeah, I'll add to that clarification. The position was posted for 6 to 8 months, 8 months, without any people of quality or experience or knowledge. And therefore, we did reorganize internally to give Todd the capacity to get this work. And I'm not going to say off the ground, but there's been a number of things, as a board is aware, that we've been over 2.5 years in listening sessions, going back, input from especially students and hearing their voices, among hearing the Hispanic voices and the students of color and stuff. So it's really, so we reorganized to make it a priority and continue to hold, being able to identify an individual capable of leading that work for us. So.
Are we actively looking for somebody right now, or has that kind of been backburnered for the time being?
Right now, it's developing a plan around it, which would include how do I identify appropriate resources. If we cannot find somebody to bring on internally, Dr. Bloomquist is working with some external resources and people who are specifically, I think, doing the work that you're doing, that you just spoke about, and what that looks like for an educational organization.
I know that staffing is hard for everybody right now, but I also know that there are services that can be employed to find staff for specific positions. I know at the city, they're spending money to hire a firm to find people to fill these specific high-level director positions that are hard to fill. So I don't know if that's something that we've looked at as a district yet, but that's another option that we could utilize.
Gary?
I knew that we had done the long search trying to find an EDI coordinator, and Dr. Bloomquist was chosen to fill that position. Dr. Bloomquist is one of the leading voices in Oregon with marginalized at-risk students. It would be difficult to find anybody of his quality to hire this district. The fact that he isn't quite the right color doesn't mean that he is not excellent at that job. So at this point, District 7 is well served by Dr. Bloomquist in that position.
Other special concerns? Debbie?
Well, on a lighter note, I noticed on social media of pictures of the Grants Pass Capeland football team working out in the Steens Mountains as their annual get in shape kind of field trip. And also a number of ninth graders who are kind of in a get to know you class bonding kind of hike in the Cathedral Mountains. And I applaud the continual efforts to have all students be included in activities, and that seems to represent, and we know based on studies and personal experience how being involved in extracurricular activities really makes a difference in graduation rates and participation and the ability to be successful in the school. I was happy to see those fun pictures. What's that?
Where did you, the pictures from Steens located at?
Facebook. This week.
Where can you find the photos?
Facebook. Grants Pass, Kristen can speak to our media presence a little bit, perhaps, or the superintendent.
Yeah, Kristen, you got the statistics there on our social media presence, and following has really been tremendous in the past year and a half, the growth and community engagement that we facilitated. So just continue to do that and really just put out there the message of what we're all about. We're all about kids and opportunities and excellence and showcasing that and highlighting that. And then also about showcasing and highlighting that we're finding ways and means to address some of our facility issues, but there's still a need out there for community support. So, yeah, our social media is the day and age by which we see lots of things happening, and the district helping to get our message out there has been highly successful.
I just had one other thing on a different topic. I want to suggest a procedural change to how we receive information before the meetings, specifically to anytime we're going to discuss a topic where staff is going to be making a recommendation to the board on how they think we should proceed. I think it would be good if the board had that as part of our packet a couple days before, so we have time to consider those recommendations. The current practice is we get the recommendations in the meeting on the fly. And so we're expected to take that recommendation and act essentially immediately. So I know in the city meetings, if there's topics where staff makes recommendations, it's in the packet that we get the week before. So we know what the staff recommendation is going to be, and we have time to think about that before we're expected to act on it. So I don't know. I don't think it would be too much of an ask to make that change. So I just wanted to see if what other board members thought about that.
So I don't believe there's any action items tonight that you didn't receive information on. Is that correct?
Correct.
For clarification. Yes. But there have been occasionally in the past. And I know Tanya and Sherry try to do a job. I mean, it's usually something along those lines. If you have specifics that you want to refresh me about offline, let me know so we can make sure we're tending to that. But we try, like I said earlier, to get you everything ahead of time as possible, especially if it's regarding an action item.
Yeah, so if staff's going to make a recommendation on an action item, if it could be at the end of or somewhere in the packet, I just think it would be helpful for me for my thought process and my analysis, as opposed to getting to the meeting, hearing the presentation, hearing a recommendation, and then going straight to a vote.
Sure. If you can identify when that has happened in the past, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
So we better understand, because we make every effort to do that, Brian. And
yeah.
so
I have an example. When we were talking about the electric buses, I believe Sherry, her recommendation was for us to not do that right now, but the board received that recommendation essentially right before we were going to vote on it. So that was a recent example of that happening, when staff made a recommendation and we went straight to a vote. And I'm sure there's others, but that was just the most recent.
All right, any other board reports or special concerns? All right, we'll go to 8.0, our action items. So 8.1, Resolution 2021-02, authorization to participate in Josephine County's short-term investment program. We'll take each of these individually.
So for the board's chair, you can speak to it as well. This is an annual resolution that needs to be passed for our continued participation in Josephine County Short-Term Investment Fund.
Property taxes that they will not have. So it's a procedural.
move we adopt resolution 2021-02, authorization to participate in the.
Member Wilkins will second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Todd?
Can I get a nutshell understanding of what this is? As the new guy, I'm pulling up the new card right now.
Not from me.
Hey, Sherry tried to do that, but do you want to divulge a little bit more regarding the reasoning behind this or what this particular fund is?
I feel like I'm in the dark, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So the property taxes are collected by the city on our behalf. And a portion of our funding that we use to operate our schools is through property taxes. And so the amount of property tax that the city collects that is due to us is held in a short-term investment account because they turn that over as they get the property tax collections. And so we are authorizing the city to do that on our behalf. If we didn't have the city do that, the funds don't come directly to us. And so it's not really an option for us to say, send that money to us directly and we'll deposit it on our own. And so it's just a mechanism for us to approve what the city is doing. As far as
It's the county.
County, correct?
Sorry, the county.
Sorry, okay.
When you say city, don't you really mean the county?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I saw some of that in the material that I got, so that helps me fresh where what we're talking about right here now, the county taxes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Delagrange,
Yes.
Member Coleman,
Aye.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That resolution passes. Next item is 8.2, approval of amended resolution 2021-15, budget adoption for the 2021-2022 school year.
So there is a memorandum from Director Ely in your packet, kind of explaining when the adopted budget, there was a couple of funds, one where the transfer was too high and one where the transfer was too low. And this resolution amends that and fixes that piece. So you can see the resolution on the back. And I don't know if you want to speak to that any further, Barry. It's pretty self-explanatory.
I actually gave you information earlier, Brian.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I really like when directors give a little heads up, which might be what Brian's talking about.
We're going to do this, I'm assuming. So we do have one comment.
Actually, no, you got a motion, a second, you do that, and then you allow public comment. And
Okay.
the intent is that public comment is not intended to sway the, it's only for the voice for the community, but not intended necessarily to sway a vote, as this is a meeting of the board for public attendance, if that,
So public comments after the vote?
what's that?
Public.
Yeah, after the vote, allow the comments, yeah.
I move that we adopt or approve the amended resolution for 21 to 2015 budget adoption and the budget adoption for the 21-22 school year.
Thank you. It's been moved. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Brian?
So public comment is after the vote. That's new to me. I've never been in a meeting where there's been public comment after something is finalized. So
I think the board does have discretion. I was just wanting to reiterate something I had received from legal counsel. And in the terms of this is a meeting of the board and the board business and decisions made by the board, but not a forum for the public to sway a vote.
So again, I draw on what we do at the city. We have action items at the city. We have the motion. And then we have public comment, because I think part of the point of the public comment is so that, the people voting are hearing everything that the community wants to say about it before it's done. So
I think the board has discretion to do that.
So Indra Nichols, we will give you 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm confused. So it's great to see everybody in person first, and I appreciate all of your service here to our kids and the school and the parents and the community. Speak up. Oh, I'll try to speak up. I didn't know where to fit in what I wanted to talk to, so it's really not on that little resolution part, but it fit in with the budget. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask questions, or that you answer questions, or I just blurb. I really appreciate Member DeLaGrange comment at the beginning about allowing people, the public, to speak at the meetings on anything other than what's on the agenda, because here's the problem. As you go through the agenda, what's on your mind, it may not be clear, because a lot of these agenda items come up, it's not on the line, but then when someone gets up, like the SWAT thing, and what you really want to talk about might be on that. And then you can't talk because it's passed and you haven't put in a thing. So to me, I would like you to really reconsider having public comment. The other part is, I have emailed board members in the spring. I don't get answers back at all. I get 2 people answer. And I don't even know if you all received what I emailed or not. There's no feedback. So I really would like to see the public be able to speak on whatever their heart desires. I mean, I understand efficiency and all, but you're serving the community, and I feel like you really need to hear from us. And so I would like to see that change. I'm wondering on the budget, the breakdown, the website is wonderful. I noticed it right away, the change. And I'm a little concerned about under parents and community. Now there's a new equity, diversity, and inclusion tabs under those. There's a lot out there on those 3 words. And unless you're, I guess, in the inner circle and really paying attention, what do those words even mean? They mean different things to different people. So I would really like to know, have an explanation on what that is and how you're going to implement it. And just the gal who gave a very nice talk on the equity training, she uses words, the most of the public don't even know what they mean or haven't heard of. So I think we really need to get specific on when you put words out there, what do you mean by it? And what exactly, when you take actions, are they going to be? I'm concerned about that. I do want to say, just based on what I heard earlier, that just because I have 4 kids I've raised through the district, elementary, middle, high school. I myself was an educator in the district, a science teacher, math. I have a science background. And so I'm very fond of the district, and I've always been a big advocate. But I'm really concerned about some things that are happening in our district. So
Indra,
Yes.
It's been almost 4 minutes. I'll let you finish your thought.
Time goes fast. Yes, is there on the budget, those huge numbers, where do we get a breakdown? And I'd like to know how much money is going into that equity, diversity, and inclusion part specifically. So can I get that from somebody, or
Yeah.
can I know?
Just send a request through my office.
To you?
And I will include the appropriate
Okay.
personnel to break that down.
And then just lastly, I will say there are many, I work with a lot of youth. There are many white, straight youth who are at risk. And I hope that we're not forgetting about them. Thank you.
All right. Yep, I'm just right now going to warn the audience, if we have further outbursts, we have mistreatment of other community members, you will be asked to leave. So we maintain respect and dignity for all community members and participants in this meeting. Thank you. This is not a time to take questions. If you had an agenda item to speak to, you should have filled out a blue card.
All right, so thank you. We appreciate that. So we have had a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the board? If not, we will call for a roll call vote. Tanya?
Member Nelson?
Yes?
Sorry. Member Neville?
Yes.
Member Delagrange?
Yes.
Member Coleman? Member Brownell? Yes. Member Wilkins?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 8.2 passes. So last is 8.3, approval of superintendent contract. We had a subcommittee that has been meeting with Jim Dole and working through their legal office. So it was myself, Cliff Coleman, and Gary Richardson. It has been a laborious process. As we started this contract, I guess, realignment, it has been almost 2 decades since the contracts have really undergone any significant changes. And so in speaking with Bill Ransom, he recommended Jim Dole's office to work with to revise the contracts and bring them up to, I think, what we considered a more modern day wording. So we met with them and have worked with them. And then Cliff and Gary and I have met for several hours as we've gone through the contract. It was finalized Monday morning, so it's not quite 48 hours, Brian, I apologize, but in trying to work with so many different people, it has been a challenge to get that all done and to the board, but you all have received a copy of that, as well as a copy of the previous contract so that you can compare and contrast the two and look at the changes. So with that, then I will entertain a motion to move forward with the approval of superintendent contract.
I would move that we postpone the approval of the superintendent's contract until probably another month or so, until we have concluded some other business within the district. The contract as it sits in our board packet still has errors, I guess I'd call them, in it. And we also have to deal with the contradiction between the contract and existing policy.
Between the contract and what?
Existing policy.
Was that a motion?
That was a motion. I move that we postpone.
Oh, I'll second it.
All right, so there's been a motion to postpone the contract approval and seconded. Any further discussion?
I would like more time to compare the two. Yes, to postpone on the contract.
Can I speak to the motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the numbers. I don't know what's right or wrong, but I do know that we've been using a 3-page contract, and I'm now looking at 9 pages. I don't understand the need for that. I think I think it's an overkill, and it's hard for me to want to complete this the way it's structured now. It seems like there's a lot of extraneous verbiage in it. Maybe some leading statements to some people if they read it. It doesn't seem like it fits our circumstance right now. And so I've been struggling with it. I brought copies of it. I've done my homework on it, and I'm sure Gary has. I don't think necessarily that I'm wanting to postpone it because he does. I have different motivation. So I don't want to get that confused. I just want to have a document that is less than 9 pages that doesn't go off in trails. This goes off in trails that I don't want to get on, and I don't think I want to be on. And I've thought quite a bit about this before I made this statement tonight. So I'm not ready for this contract as presently. I feel badly, Scott has done a yeoman job of trying to keep Gary and me together with him and get this done for our superintendent. But still in all, I just think that we're not quite finished. So I don't have any dates or deadlines or anything. We're not quite finished.
Gary?
I think it might be appropriate for the board to discuss some of the terms that are in this contract. I know that if you weren't part of the committee, possibly the salary amount or some of the fringe benefits or those kinds of things, this would probably be a good time to make sure the entire board's aware and somewhat in agreement as we can contract.
I have questions as to how the committee came to the final or the decision to, come up with this process, I guess.
Yeah, I know in previous years, we've had available to us comparable salaries, for instance, and comparable benefits and from comparable districts and local districts in Southern Oregon, but then also across the state in comparable sizes. So I haven't seen that either.
Right.
So that is true. We received information from COSA regarding the salary and fringe benefits that all executives within districts across the state of Oregon receive. And from there, we were able to determine percentile rankings of where we stood with regards to the pay and fringe benefits of our superintendent versus comparable districts versus all districts within the state of Oregon. So we did have that information that we looked at. We did work through the attorney's office, Jim Dole, and he provided us with a template of what is, I think, considered a pretty standard contract that most districts use for superintendents. And then as a template from that, the committee met and we went over it line by line. So Cliff, we did go through all 9 pages when we met.
Well, they, if I can respond to that, the number of pages was building as I went through them. So I don't usually like to go from 3 up to 9. I'd rather go from 9 down to 3. So that's my hang up. I just think there's too much extraneous wording that has been added unnecessarily, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but
they get paid by the hour, so I suspect that there's a good reason why it's gone up. But we did go through the entire thing line by line. We talked about literally each sentence. You all know Gary and how precise we are when it comes to wording. And then we took it back to the attorneys, I believe 3 times to have revisions made as we discussed the various language that was placed in the contract and the concerns within the subcommittee. So that is where we settled. With regards to the policy, I did pull the policy and look at it. So the policy was written in 1988 with regards to some of the language, and then last revised in 2004. So our policy has not been revised for almost 20 years. And so just looking at the policy and what we've done historically and traditionally in the district, we have been out of step with the policy now for almost 20, well, I can't speak to the length, but it has been many years that we have been out of step with the policy. So probably better for us to go back and revisit the policy and look at changing the policy to better align what has been historically happening with superintendents and their contracts moving forward, as opposed to saying that the contract is out of step with the policy. We have been out of step with the policy for quite a while. So that would be something that we would want to revisit as a board, is looking at that policy and then revising it, since it's been 17 years since that's been done.
So as regards to like the amounts and the fringe benefits and stuff like that, like Scott said, we did do the comparison. I was an advocate for making sure the superintendent's position accurately reflects what's available out in the marketplace, because the superintendent's position affects all the people underneath him. And for District 7 to maintain quality people so that we get the education we want for our kids, that's what you have to do. From personally, and my company, which has offices all over the United States and the world, employee retention is become a very large factor. If you don't keep your compensation levels close to the market, you start to bleed the good people. Of course, the substandard people don't leave. So it's a real danger if you don't keep the compensation levels at the market rate.
And for, I guess, board knowledge, we were at the, probably below the 10th percentile as far as market rate goes with regards to the contract previously. So, Brian?
So am I reading this correctly? I just want to make sure I understand that the superintendent's salary was $155,595, and the subcommittee is recommending a salary of $180,000 now. Is that accurate? Okay. And where does that 180 fall in that range done by the analysis?
That puts us at about 55 percentile, so just over 50th percentile. I think the high that we saw was 240 or 250,000. And the low was about 150. So
you have to go to a really small district to get some of the low numbers. If anything, medium size or up, much higher than what we have.
Could the board get a copy of that analysis that was done?
Sure.
Okay.
I would like to see those comps.
Now, I would have one comment. There was a fringe benefit that sort of didn't match with the original salary amount that came back later. That caused a significant adjustment. So that's still something that I'm thinking about. We added back in the transportation. It was out for a little while. We added back in, which is a $6,000 thing for $500 a month for transportation allowance, which wasn't in my mind in there when we picked the 180. It came back later. So I'm still a little bit squishy on that part.
So that was added.
that was part of the original contract that was then revised and then added back in as we went through multiple discussions and iterations about compensation and the benefits.
The shorter, clearer explanation is I missed a meeting. The other thing I think we should note is for some reason there's a C and a D section under item 9 of the contract, and they're redundant, and the C section still has verbiage that needs to be corrected.
These two sections,
So we have
very redundant. I think they're almost identical.
motion.
But he might be referring. It's not up today.
Call for the question. I'd like to vote. Is that a motion on the floor?
And the
I
second.
have one more question. In the previous contract, I'm just trying to see what changed between the past and now. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the board was able to terminate the superintendent for no cause in previous contracts or in the previous contract. Is that correct?
So that language, I mean, you have a copy of the previous contract in your packet, which you
And it refers to an ORS, giving the reasons.
So I have heard that stated multiple times in our board meetings. However, in my discussion with the attorneys, I don't think that there is just a blanket, you may terminate for any cause, period. I don't. So there has always been language in there that has required notice and evaluation. And so I know that that has been stated. I don't know that that's necessarily the exact wording. It's been insinuated. I don't think that that's actually how the policy reads, and that I don't think it is how the contract previously read. So.
Well, the contract previously read to say for any of the reasons specified in ORS 342.865. And that, it's a short list. It's, for reasons of inefficiency and immorality, insubordination, neglect of duty, physical or mental incapacity, conviction of a felony, inadequate performance, failure to comply with reasonable requirements, or any cause which constitutes grounds for the revocation of a teaching license.
Right, and that language is actually in C on page 7. It essentially transposed that. So that's not without cause. Those are causes for termination. But there is nothing in there that says you may fire without any reason whatsoever. It doesn't say that. There is some language in our new contract that specifies, I think it further delineates goals. And so you can read through that language. That has been something that we've been working through. But the insinuation that you can just fire for any reason at any time is not necessarily in that policy. There is a list of causes that you have to look at. So.
I guess to further amplify what the attorney said, even if it was in the contract, it wouldn't be legal. There are Oregon statutes and stuff like that that you have to follow. So there's always a process.
Todd, did you have something?
Yeah, for clarification, was the previous contract for 2 or 3 years? Because I noticed this one's for 3 years.
Yeah, so that is where our policy from 1988 and 2004 hasn't been followed verbatim. I think historically the district has always offered up to 3 years extension. And then that seems to have been not negotiated, but just looked at on an annual basis with the superintendent evaluation that has been done. You may go up to 3, you may not exceed 3 years. So that is kind of where we stand currently with the statutes and the laws. So last year, I believe it was, so this year in March, when we had a vote amongst the board, it was extended for 3 years. And then pending finalization of the contract, because the contract had not been looked at for many, many years, it was recommended we revise the entire thing with an attorney. So that's what this process has been, a little bit more laborious than what has gone on in the past. Previously, the superintendent's contract was renewed only for 1 year or 2 years in previous school years. So.
Was the new contract modeled off of existing contract that is being used by another district, or was it written from scratch?
No, so that's what Jim Dole did. I mean, he took other existing contracts from other districts and then used that as a template for the creation of this, I'll say, modern day contract, if you want to use that parlance. All right, so we've had a motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? All right, Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Chair Nelson,
No?
Member Neville,
Remind me what I'm voting on,
On
this motion, since it's been so long.
Postpone.
a delay in the approval of the contract.
Member Richardson moved to postpone for another month.
Okay. Yes.
Is that 1 month?
I didn't say 1 month. I
You said
said,
1 month or longer.
That's yes for my vote.
I think we need some time.
Member De La Grange?
Yes.
Member Conlon?
I'm not in favor of the contract at the present time.
Member Brownell?
I'm sorry, would you please restate the motion
Right.
for us?
Member Richardson moved to postpone the contract, making a decision on Superintendent Colt's contract for another month or longer until we conclude other business in the district. There are contract errors and the policy needs to be reviewed.
1 month, right?
At least 1 month?
At least 1 month or longer.
Yes.
Member Wilkins?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carried. So 9.0, future meeting dates and suggested agenda items. So 9.1 and 9.2, there will be a special board meeting which is an employee pre-termination hearing on Thursday, July 15th. There will be 2 sessions, one at 3 o'clock and one at 5 o'clock. We have our next board meeting will be on Tuesday, July 27th at 5 p.m. Sorry, Kathy.
I'll get over it.
And that is tentatively scheduled, I think. Do we have items that we will need to discuss at that time?
We have nothing pressing that has to be accomplished by the July 27th meeting at this time, so it's at the board's discretion. You have a couple of special sessions forthcoming. The adoption, Trish, can that wait till the first week of August? So so we do not have anything absolutely pressing to accomplish on July 27th, or excuse me, yes, at this time.
Okay,
Unless the board has agenda items that they are requesting that we begin addressing sooner than the August meeting.
Are we considering not having the July 27th meeting?
Correct. It's tentative. We historically have had the second meeting in July as tentative, pending any pressing issues that need to be addressed by the board.
So just for clarification, we have a number of people who aren't under contract in July. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess.
A lot of staff are not under contract in the month of July.
Yeah. Right now, those that are under contract in July are obviously all of your district office staff, warehouse, print shop.
It's just my point. July is generally shut down for the district. And there's a lot of staff that aren't available. And historically, we haven't had the second meeting in July.
Correct.
okay. Hearing no opposition, we will cancel the July 27th meeting. Okay.
Just had an opening.
Our board meetings following that will be August 10th and August 24th. And then, as we talked about a few weeks ago, or at one of our previous board meetings, our application for a $5,000 scholarship, which will be applied to student scholarships, which it requires 18 hours of us and our time, will begin on September 14th, which is a DESMP initial meeting. We'll look forward to that. So.
Is there a course like outline, or is it just, do we set the course, or do they have a
Tom, do you want to
preset
speak?
curriculum?
You've spoken with.
I've been working with them, and this first meeting is just an initial meeting. It'll take about 60 minutes just to kind of outline things, get everybody on board. And then she and I will be talking in August to set some other meetings. She will direct us how often we should have them. And those meetings will be long. So we might want separate nights to have those meetings. Otherwise, we'll make the board meeting very long.
So our intention is to back the board meeting up to them?
Just on this one, because it was short. And then she was going to get back with me on what the other ones will.
And obviously, we need the input of board members
Yeah.
on availability, so.
I was under the impression they were gonna be like 3 hours long, each one.
Okay.
It'll be a total of 6 sessions, 3 hours each.
Okay.
So
I also just want to, we did have a blue card to request, speaking to 9.1, 9.2 for clarification. This portion of the agenda only is to communicate scheduled meetings, not speak to the content of those meetings. So is Torrin still here? So Torrin, if you have any comments on when those meetings are scheduled, but you're not allowed to comment on the content of those meetings. So do you want to withdraw that? Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that then, we will adjourn our regular session and we will commence our executive session in 10 minutes. So we'd like to thank everyone for your attendance this evening. The microphone's back on. So we are reconvening our regular on our action items 14.1, approval of classified contract. I will entertain a motion to approve the classified contract.
So moved. Member Coolman.
A second?
Brownell?
Thank you. Any further discussion? Tanya, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes?
Undecided.
Grange,
Yes.
Member Coolman,
Yes.
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richards.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. We will adjourn our regular session. We will see you all on Thursday at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, depending on your desire.
Are you sending a school bus to pick us up?